Hello, I'm Mark McCartney with Arctic Food Equipment. We're located here in Springfield. We've been in business 26 years, and I've been a service technician for about 44. Some of your supervisors had asked me to kind of do a little maintenance video and kind of let you know what possibly you can fix before making a service call or what you cannot fix. So I'd like to show you a few diagrams that I've drawn up here on the board. This here is a home system, heating, air conditioning, home heating and air conditioning. Like here's the ceiling of your home, here's the floor of your home. The air flows in, the return air comes down through your air filters, goes through an A coil and back out and produces cold air into your room. Several other diagrams I have here is a reach-in cooler or freezer. The blue lines are shelves. This coil up here is called the evaporator. And also I have a walk-in cooler freezer down here. This is called the evaporator, which is inside. The condenser is outside. Outside condenser, in this case the condenser's on the unit right here. Here's an ice machine. Just so you know, this top part is the only thing that makes ice. The bottom part where the ice is called the bin. It is not refrigerated. So the ice itself being in there is all that keeps that cold. On this ice machine head, we have a condenser also that the air pulls through. There's usually, on Manitowoc, there's usually an air filter on the back side. And on Hoshizaki, there's air filters on the front. Those need to be cleaned at least every 3 months. If they get dirty sooner, they need to be cleaned more often. So if you ever need to know, you can actually replace this top part of the head without having to replace the bin. So why is this all important? Well, I wanted you to know on your home air conditioner that you have air filters also. These should be changed every 3 months, and I'll give you a reason of what happens if you don't do that. Let's say we have a thermostat in the room, and you set it on, the thermostat is set on 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, it gets humid, it's a rainy day, or you've been outside. You now want the air conditioner to be 73. But since it's so hot, you think, well, I'll turn it down to 70 and it will cool it down faster. That's a misnomer. Air conditioners, coolers, walk-ins, even ice machines only have one speed. There's a few exceptions, so if somebody sees it, they're gonna say, well, I've got a 2-speed in my house. But on the most case, there's one speed, either on or off. So turning this down to 70 degrees, all it makes it do is run longer and move the air through the room, through this system, and circulating back around and around until it gets down to 70. If you set it on 73, it does the same thing until it gets to 73 and then it shuts off. So the way this works is air comes into the return air. Some people have filters in the grill and goes through this coil. When it goes through this A coil, this coil actually picks up heat and takes it outside to the condenser, which condenses the heat and gets rid of it by blowing a fan through it. And that's why you feel the 130-degree air coming out of your unit outside. It's 30 degrees warmer than outside temperature. If it's 100 outside, it would be 130 degrees. The same thing with the reach-in cooler and freezer. Here's the evaporator up at the top inside, same as this one. This actually takes the heat out of the air as it circulates through the shelving and inside the box. Here's a walk-in cooler. It also has an evaporator. It's picking up the heat, taking it down the refrigeration lines, and condensing it and blowing it outside. The way you can remember that the evaporator is inside is it evaporates the water in the cooler, takes out humidity, and you've seen the water going down the drain in all 3 of these devices. So this is the evaporator and this is a condenser. People call in all the time, and quite often they call them reversed. We're used to it, it's no big deal, but I thought maybe you would like to know. So, some of the things that you can check. The most common problem for us to have a service call is this condenser is dirty. The air, it has a grill over it down here at the floor. You can't see in it. And inside there's these little fins that catch the dirt. Factories do not put it on there, but we take a Walmart filter and cut it to the size of that and put like toothpicks in it to hold it, put the cover back on, and let it catch all the dirt before it gets into the fins of the condenser. Before you put the filter on though, you need to make sure this condenser is completely clean. You can brush off the outside dirt, then you kind of need to blow through it with some high pressure air. Not the can air, but we use CO2 tanks that we carry, but like an air compressor, blow it out. A shop vac will not do it. Each one of these items has a condenser. This has a condenser outside, this one has one outside. These have to be washed out with garden hoses. These units that are inside, ice machine, they need to have a filter on them, and then once you get them cleaned, it's not hard to take care of them. Ice machines, we would suggest cleaning the filter at least once a month. These may be once a month also, it depends on how much foot traffic is actually walking by. If it's a convenience store, these need them about once a month. So the main nuisance call is a condenser. If this is plugged, if you cannot get air through it, it cannot get rid of that heat that we've been talking about blowing outside or into the room. If you can't get rid of the heat, it can't refrigerate, it can't cool. The next quite common problem is the evaporator, poor airflow. So in this case on the home air conditioners, if these filters are plugged, you do not have good airflow. If you don't have good airflow, this is not picking up any heat. So therefore it gets really cold and freezes up. So the filters are that important. We recommend every 3 months at home. And I highly recommend, now that we all use these special phones and stuff, that you put like a 3-month reminder in your phone. Or if you're a calendar person, circle a date on the calendar every 3 months to not only change them at work, but also at home. In a reach-in, these blue shelves, those shelves that you stack food on, if you stack boxes that block completely across the shelf, the airflow will not be able to go through in the circular motion. If you cannot get air through, it won't cool. I've had boxes that would be like down here on this next shelf. Everything up here was 36 degrees in a cooler. Everything down here was 50 degrees because the air could not get past this point. That's very important. I know a lot of you have to use all your space possible, but you gotta leave an air gap, preferably front and back. Walk-in coolers, you know how there's usually shelving right here. If you pile a box on this side and a box on this side and block that airflow, your walk-in is going to get warm, and that's probably going to freeze up. It's not really a problem on an ice machine. The evaporator is actually what's making the ice in an ice machine. The plate gets real cold, water runs over it, and it freezes. As far as cleaning this, it's a scale problem. It's scale in the water. Factory recommends you clean these inside by taking them apart and using a special cleaner every 6 months at a minimum. Some places have really bad water. It's got to be more than that because it just won't drop ice. So another problem is we get calls for is no power to the unit. It's disappointing to get out there and have to reset a breaker. That's not what we like to charge for. That is something we want you to check. If your cooler is not displaying any lights at top, if the fan motor is not running, if the compressor is not running, if you hear absolutely nothing, you really need to see if it's plugged into the wall Some cases I've seen where this has been pushed back and smashed the plug and broke it, so you're not getting power for that reason. If it is plugged in right, you might take a little fan or a clock or something and plug into the same outlet and see if you have power. If you don't have power at that outlet, you need to go check the breakers. If you reset a breaker and it trips immediately, that means there's a short and you're probably going to have to call us. So that's, 3 big items that we want you to check before you call us. Let's review those real quick. Clean air filters, clean filters on the condensers, making sure this isn't blocked, making sure this isn't blocked. If it is blocked and has been that way overnight, it's a good chance this is frozen up or this is frozen up. And the only way we can defrost it is to take it all apart and use a heat gun to cool this, to warm up this ice to defrost it. In cases of the walk-in cooler, we take a garden hose, hook up to your hose spigot, and come in here and defrost it. This takes 45 minutes to an hour. This takes 2 hours to defrost this. So make sure you give good airflow. Another item that happens is water inside the refrigerator, water on the floor in a walk-in cooler, and even sometimes water in your furnace closet from your home air conditioner. Reach-in cooler has a drain line that comes off of this evaporator, runs down the back, maybe inside the wall, and then drains into a pan down here where the heat from this evaporates the water. That's standard. There's a little hose that's hooked here. If a box is bumped it, that would cause it to leak inside. If this actually got food in it or it is frozen up, the water won't drain down the tube. If it's a freezer, it has to go into defrost every so often, and if that heater is burnt out that keeps that tube warm, when it goes into defrost, obviously frozen water will not allow it to drain. Same deal with the walk-in cooler, walk-in freezer. If it's a cooler, it has a tube that drains outside. If it's a freezer, it has a special drain with heat tape wrapped around it so that it doesn't freeze inside there when the water goes down the drain and defrost. So items that you cannot fix. So I'm going to go through a list of things that you can't fix. Thermostat adjustment. We ask that you not adjust the thermostat in a reach-in cooler because it was working yesterday and the day before and the day before. It is usually not the thermostat that is the problem. If you turn the thermostat colder, it's going to be just like this situation. This cooler is going to run and run and run until it reaches that temperature that you turned it to. Well, quite often, if you turn the knob from 3 to 6, that's going to be below 32 degrees, and you're going to freeze your lettuce and stuff overnight if you mess up the thermostat. It's just really not a good idea. If you mess with the thermostat and we show up and find a different problem, we now have to stand there and wait for this whole refrigerator or this walk-in cooler to pull down the temperature to make sure we set the thermostat right. That's more so in the case of the refrigerators, reach-in refrigerators. I can use a glass of ice to set this one, but I cannot do that to this one. So it adds 45 minutes to an hour to the service call because this is 50 degrees, I've had it apart, and now I've got to let it pull down and set the thermostat. So it's best just not to adjust the thermostat. Another common call that we have is the unit just needs Freon. Come out and put Freon in it. Whether it's your home or these units, Freon does not evaporate. Freon does not get used up. The only way you need refrigerant is if there's a leak. And if there's a leak, it's leaking out, and that's why it would need more refrigerant. You can't fix that yourself. If there's a leak in the system, and somebody's coming out every year and charging your home air conditioner, they really need to find the leak and fix it. Especially with the new EPA laws, we can't let it leak Freon more than 3 times or we're in EPA violation. grinding noises on the fan motors. Sometimes these fans start making a noise. Could be the fan in your air conditioner furnace. Could be this fan up here. There's nothing really you can do. It usually means the bearings are bad and the motor needs to be replaced. Compressor not running. Compressor down here. That usually means that it's a start component. It's a device that starts the compressor and it's possibly gone bad, or the compressor has locked up, just like a car engine would lock up. If it's the start components, we can replace it. If the compressor's internally locked up, we have to replace the compressor. And depending on the age of the unit, you kind of look at whether you're going to put a compressor in it or buy a new unit with a new warranty. So sometimes the compressor makes a bad noise. It's a grinding sound, and that means something has broke inside, and the only choice is to replace the compressor or buy a new unit. Another thing that happens is the thermostat's not controlling the temperature right. It's letting it get too warm before it comes back on. It's getting it too cold before it shuts off. In that case, it takes electrical wiring and we replace the thermostat. Sometimes when these freeze up, the defrost timer is not working properly. On a freezer, it has to defrost 4 times a day, so that's every 6 hours for 40 minutes. In a walk-in freezer, these fan motors will shut off. You will hear sizzling noise inside. It's the electric heaters, just like the element in your oven, would be sitting there melting the frost off. So as that water droplet hits that element, you hear that sizzling noise. Some people will call and says, it sounds like I'm frying bacon inside my walk-in freezer. That's the noise that I'm talking about. Low on refrigerant. The unit really is low on refrigerant. That's something we would have to fix. We have electronic leak detectors that would help us find the leak. We can also put dye in the system that flows with the refrigerant and the oil. And then when the dye comes out the pinhole, we have a little black light that we use to find the fluorescent dye, and that tells us where the leak is. No power to the unit. The breaker trips immediately. That means there's a short. That means there's a problem with something. Could be the motor, could be the compressor, it could be the light switch. Something has water in it, but that's for safety. If the breaker trips immediately when you reset it, you need to call for service. And also, if any fan motor is not just not running, obviously the bearing has gone out or the electrical wiring has been a problem. So these symptoms are pretty much the same on all these devices. Same thing on fan motors. So they also asked me to talk about ice machines a little bit. Ice machines are 80%, I would say 70 to 80% of the problem with ice machines is they get dirty inside with scale from the water. And they will go a long time. Hoshizaki will go a long time. You can go a year without cleaning Hoshizaki and it will work. But then when it quit working, it takes you 3 to 4 hours to clean it because you haven't cleaned it in that every 6 months period. The scaling inside of it gets so bad. One thing about a Hoshizaki is the plates are going up and down and you have to take the top panel off. You have to have a brush about that long. And if this is up against a hard ceiling, I can't get my brush in there to go up and down. That's a real problem. That needs to be watched out for. If it's a drop-in ceiling and I can remove a tile and get my brush in, I can do it. Excuse me. Manitowoc is a lot easier to clean. I can clean a Manitowoc in an hour on the job site. Excuse me, let me get a drink. It takes me 3 hours to clean a Hoshizaki. It takes me an hour to clean a Manitowoc. It takes 40 minutes for a Hoshizaki ice machine to make ice. It takes 15 minutes for a Manitowoc ice machine to make ice. They both make the same amount of ice in 24 hours. But the part about the Manitowoc being able to make ice every 15 minutes is I can make an adjustment every 15 minutes and get this machine working faster than I can the Hoshizaki. If I watch one batch of the Hoshizaki 40 minutes, make an adjustment, stand there another 40 minutes to make sure, absolutely sure everything's okay, you're getting a lot more time involved in it. So we sell both machines, Manitowoc and Hoshizaki. We're warranty rep for both of them. We're warranty rep for a lot of the refrigeration equipment. Just so you know, we do also the hot side in your kitchen. Grills, fryers, I know you don't have fryers, just all your machines that process the food, we also do. Here recently we bought Ozark Food Equipment, which used to be the Hobart dealer, and they do a lot of service on the hot side. So we bought their parts department. So now we have thousands of parts that we have moved in-house, and one of the owner's son has come to our location to help do that. Those are the main things about refrigeration. They also asked me to talk about dishwashers a little bit. One of the main problems with dishwashers also is scale. Holes getting plugged up. The spray arms aren't spraying because you have scale in them. When I gave this seminar earlier to some of your locations, they said they had like green stuff showing up inside their dish machine. The only thing we could figure was it was scale, and she was going to have to run white vinegar through it, or lime away, some kind of a descaler. If your dishwasher has the elements that are down in the bottom that you can see, they will get a white scale built all the way around them. Do not wait until that white scale builds all the way around them, because that scale holds that heat of that element inside and it will burn it out. So as you can see, maintenance prevents a lot of these problems. The last item they asked me to talk about was garbage disposals. Garbage disposals can be dangerous. We all know that. Forks get dropped in them. The little part of the fork tooth gets hung in between the blade and the bottom. Quite often it will sit there and hum, won't turn. I don't suggest that you put your hand down inside it to get that fork, because some of them have little kind of like trap doors, and as your hand goes in it spreads, but when you try to pull it back out, it's collapsed on the upper part of your hand and you can't get it out until you take something and move those flaps away so you can get your hand out. I wish I could tell you I don't know that from experience, but I do, and just don't do it. Take a pair of needle nose pliers and reach in there and get it. Quite often you can't get it to turn, so there's a place on the bottom that has a place for an Allen wrench, which you stick in there and you turn it to get it unlocked. Sometimes you can turn it backwards and get it unlocked. After you do that, get the wrench off, try to start it, see if it will start. Also, they have a reset button. It's a red button, usually on the bottom of the motor, and if something was in there, or if it pulled high amperage or high load, it would trip that reset button because of high amperage. After it cools off, you can reset it and then try it again. Food does not go down a garbage disposal. It sounds funny, but I'm talking about taking a whole pan of macaroni and pouring it down the garbage disposal. That does not work very well at all. It gums it up. It can't get it down the drain. It can't chew it up. and it makes a big ball mess. The main part of the food in the pan or dish needs to go into the trash. Then, as you're washing and rinsing what's left in the pan out, it can go down the garbage disposal. Obviously, paper and that kind of thing should not go down the garbage disposal. I think I've covered everything. I'll be glad to entertain any questions, comments. My phone number here at work is 417-888-0100. My email is mark, M-A-R-K, at Arctic, A-R-C-T-I-C, the word food, F-O-O-D-I-N-C for incorporated.com. Arctic Food Inc. We have about 15 technicians that can also answer your questions and service manager on staff. Thanks for letting me present this to you today. Goodbye.